Welcome to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. Today we're going to do a shootout between my beloved PRS SE 2018 model. This is in the Trampus green finish. This is a really beautiful guitar. I purchased this here from Sky Music in Melbourne, Australia. Up against this is the Harley Benton CST-24. Both have 24 frets. This was actually sent out from Thomann, so a huge thanks to them for sending this out. And this is a comparison slash shootout I've had so many requests for, so if this is helpful, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on what I think about both of these in comparison to each other, both tonally and how they feel to play. Let's do it. Let's kick it off with some dirty tones. I'm plugged into the Kemper profiling amp using a profile I made just recently of my Marshall DSL 40CR amplifier loaded with an Eminence Texas heat speaker. This is bridge pickup in humbucker mode. Here we go. Alright, so already I can hear a difference in the tone. This sounds a little bit hotter than the PRS in terms of its output. Sounds a little darker as well, which is what I thought I'd hear just based on playing this live as well as playing the PRS so many times live as well. So let's go over to the neck pickup now. We'll give this a shot. Alright, over to some split coil tones now. Let's give this a shot. This is bridge pickup. Now to my ear, this actually sounds maybe a little bit better on the split coil, but it's just one of those things. It just depends on what you like. Now to my ear, this sounds like a louder guitar and slightly fatter on the split coil mode. There's no right or wrong. To me, this is my comparison. This would sound like a set of 60s pickups versus a set of 50s pickups in the PRS. At least that's what I'm hearing. There's maybe a little bit more stringiness on the PRS in terms of that single note stuff. But overall, they sound very, very comparable. This just has sort of a fatter and maybe slightly darker sound in split coil mode, at least anyway. Let's go over to some cleaner tones on the Marshall. This is still a crunch channel, but with the gain down, I've added a little bit of delay as well. This is neck pickup to start with. Over to bridge. This definitely has more output to my ear. That doesn't mean it sounds better, it just has more output, so it's slightly louder. There's nothing that you can't compensate by just by turning up or down the volume on either guitar. And over to some higher gain tones now. Let's give this a shot. This is bridge pickup. One of the questions you might have is which of the tremolo systems is better, the PRS SE or the Harley Benton? In my mind, at least the way that they're set up currently, the PRS wipes the floor with the Harley Benton. Now, to be fair, this just played great straight out of the box or off the shelf. I didn't have to do anything to this. The tremolo arm just worked great. This was the first guitar I actually started using the whammy bar on because I've never really used them before. I always found it unreliable in terms of tuning and all that on other guitars. But this one, it just worked and it's nice and easy. And being able to double stop without it moving is also a really cool thing as well. I think that's great. So for me, I give the nod to this. It's not to say that the Harley Benton is bad, it just isn't set up properly out of the box in terms of the tremolo system. I had to really push down hard to get it to work, and I'll show you that right now. And over to the Harley Benton CST-24. Now the PRS, as you can see, I hardly even have to touch it and it moves nice and smoothly. This one I have to really push down hard. Now in the back of this guitar, there's some springs. If I loosen the springs, I'll have a lot less tension on the tremolo arm. So this isn't a complaint. This is just something that you can fix easily. It's a Wilkinson bridge. These bridges are awesome. They're used on a whole lot of guitars out there as well. So it will be very, very reliable. But I'm just talking about straight out of the box, the PRS has, I think, the more functional tremolo arm. This, you've really got to push hard to get it to work, and you can't get that smooth kind of trem out of it, at least not in the way that it's set up right now. But what a tone. In terms of how much both of these guitars weigh, the CST-24T weighs a whole lot more than this. It's probably almost half as much on top of this again. So it is heavy. This would be up there with most sort of Les Pauls in terms of its weight. It's mahogany body. It just weighs a lot. So get prepared for that. If that's a deal breaker, you might be better off going for the PRS SE, or at least this particular one is very, very light. It's a 2018 model. In terms of the pickup tones, they're both great. I like them both for different reasons. This has a little bit more of a hotter output, and it sounded better to my ear in split coil mode to some extent, at least with the gain anyway. I've tried this a few times on split coil mode in the live mix, and I've never really been that satisfied with it, but I love the humbuckers on this as well. They have more of a sparkly kind of vibe to the top end, a really voicey kind of sound, which I really like. Some folks will really dig the fact this has much more of a modern sort of vibe to it. Now, in terms of build quality and how the necks feel and all that kind of stuff, both of these necks feel extremely nice in the hand. I'm still going to give the edge to the PRS just because it has more of a rounded feel, and that's kind of what I like. This has more of a sort of like a square or rectangular kind of vibe to the back of the neck. It's hard to explain to you. Once you pick it up, you'll know what I mean. It doesn't feel like a C completely. It feels kind of flat on the edges. It's a really flat fretboard as well. Same with the PRS, it's got that kind of vibe, but this is flatter again. This just feels a little bit easier to play, at least to my hand, but maybe it's just because I've had it a whole lot longer. Now, I've taken this out and played live with it, and the first time I ever used it, it sounded phenomenal. So there's nothing to stop you from getting this and being very, very happy with it. If you don't have straight up comparison to the PRS SE, there's not a lot in it. So in terms of visuals, which one looks best to my eye? You know what? I love the Tremolo green. I think this looks great, but the top on this is spectacular. It really, really is. Whether or not you're a fan of Harley Benton guitars or not, it's pretty hard to say that that doesn't look nice, right? It looks beautiful. This looks great as well, but there's a few things on this that just make it stand out. I think, you know, the back's finished as well, which is also a really nice feature. You know, the back of the SE is just sort of like a varnish or something like that. Look, it looks great. Both of these look great. Both of them are just as easily playable all the way up to the end of the fretboard as well, which is something that I wasn't expecting. Sometimes when you go for a budget guitar, you don't get the playability and access, or maybe there's just something not right in terms of the frets. There's none of those problems with this at all. If I didn't have this at a gig and I had this, I wouldn't think twice about it, except for one thing. This is just that little bit heavier, or quite a bit heavier actually, than this. If I'm gonna do 3 full sets, I'm probably gonna take this. If I'm gonna do 1 set, or I want this as a second guitar, or I could probably still get away with it for 3 sets, but I'll be stretching my neck the following day. It is quite heavy. It probably doesn't look it, or it might not look any heavier, at least on camera, than this, but it does weigh quite a bit more. Attention to detail on the Harley Benton is phenomenal. It's just as good as the PRS SE. The fret edges, all that kind of stuff, the pickups, the way that they sound, the way that they respond, all that kind of stuff is just as good. It just sounds a little bit different. So this video isn't to say, you know, oh, this is going to be a much better guitar because it's a PRS. I think they're both very, very comparable. They're just a little bit different to each other. So if weight is a concern, go for this. If you like hotter sort of output pickups and you're going to be playing more heavy stuff, maybe go for this, but that can still handle it as well. The split coil tones on this are just that little bit better than the split coil tones on this, at least to my ear. But the humbucker tones, I kind of like them both. This just still sounds great to my ear. Thanks again for watching, guys. My name's Shane. Please let me know in the comments which one you like best and why. Now, I paid for this here in Australia, and this one was sent out from Thomann, so a huge thanks to them for sending this out. If you want to find out more about either of these guitars, I'll leave some links in the description below. So overall, value for money, they're both really, really great. This holds its own with the PRS guitars worth a lot more, and this absolutely holds its own with this. So yeah, which one do you like better? It doesn't really matter in the end. It all comes down to how you play and what you want out of your instrument. So thanks again for watching. Catch you soon. See ya.